shaky head fish. Shaky head fish. Fish was in like, I don't know, like 6 foot of water. Hey, I mean, I don't know. At least we're getting our line tight. That's all I can say. At least we're getting our line tight.
All right, welcome back to the channel. And today I want to talk to you about what I feel is possibly the most fish catching bait in the winter when you're dragging something on the bottom. And it's a finesse shaky head. I have caught so many fish in the wintertime on this little bait that it's become my ultra super confidence bait when the water is really, really cold and the fish are relating to the bottom of the lake. This is something that you can throw around in ponds, lakes, creeks, wherever fish live. It's pretty snag proof, and if you go really light, you'll be able to fish this while walking around in a pond or subdivision or wherever you're at. And it's just a really good fish catcher. There are times when the fish are in a funk and they won't bite a jig. And when that's going on, this is something you can pick up and catch those fish that will not bite a jig. I mean, I've consistently caught fish in like 41, 42 degree water. So, you know, jerkbait, A-rig type water when the fish are holding tight to the bottom, which is something they do sometimes. I mean, when you're on a lake in the wintertime, obviously you want to idle around and try to locate some bait and kind of get a feel for what's going on. You'll either see fish suspended or you won't see fish suspended. When you don't see them suspended, they're most likely tucked to the bottom. A lot of times the shad get really, really tight to the bottom. You can idle around, you don't see them suspended anywhere. They'll be really tight to the bottom. That is when this sucker right here comes into play.
Oh, that was a bite. I don't know. Told you had a bite. Told you had a bite. Pull it away from me. Boy, I tell you what. That's fun though. It's fun. Probably because I'm throwing shaky head. Nah, I've been throwing all kinds of stuff. This time, man, I'll just go finesse, see if I can pick up a few bites before it gets dark. And it's paying off.
All right, let's dive into some of the worms that I've had success on in the past. These are probably some worms you want to pick up if you have not, and leave it in the comment section. What are some of the worms that you've caught fish on in the cold water period in the winter? Because there's a lot of good worms out there. These are just some of the ones that I've had success on. So we'll go through some of these worms, some of the colors, the jig heads, and then the setup that I use for fishing this winter finesse shaky head stuff. This one right here, this has been my all-time favorite. This is a Zoom finesse worm. It's been around forever. It's a 5-inch worm, watermelon candy and green pumpkin, occasionally June bug if the water's got some pretty good stain. But I'd say like 90% of the time, I'm throwing this watermelon candy in the winter. It's just been a really solid worm for me. It's a really good solid color. And man, I just really feel like I can catch some fish on this if I keep it in my hand, especially if they won't bite a jig. There's several other good baits out there though. Another worm that I've had good success on is this 5-inch worm. This is by Hawgz Custom Baits. It's kind of unique. You know, it's wide here in the top and it kind of tapers in the center. And then the tail kind of flares out. But this is a really good worm as well. And it's, you know, it's a little bit bigger than the finesse worm, but barely, you know, so pretty similar to the Zoom finesse worm. You know, Hawgz, they don't use salt in their plastics, so this is going to float up a little bit more off the bottom than the Zoom does. The next worm is a worm that I just rediscovered last year, and it's a worm that I found out about probably, I don't know, like 5 or 6 years ago. I was fishing a BFL original on Neely Henry Lake, and this was a worm that the guy I was fishing with was catching them really good on this worm, and he gave me a couple, and I fished it really hard for a couple years, and I forgot about it, and I just rediscovered it. But this is the Strike King. It's the perfect plastic. This is the Fat Baby finesse worm. It's a really good color, green pumpkin sapphire, green pumpkin sapphire. But this is a really good bait. It's got that, you know, one of the best things about Strike King plastics is that coffee scent. I'm a firm believer in scent, especially in the wintertime when things are tough. I think scent can really make a difference. But once again, it's real similar to the Zoom and real similar to the Hawgz. So there's a trend going here. These are all like that 5, just a hair over 5-inch bait. So another bait that's out there is made by Crock Gator. It's a little bit bigger worm, but it has a really unique design. It's got that bulbous tail, and that tail floats up on the bottom, which I think, you know, sometimes that can make a big difference. This is a little bit bigger worm. So here's your Zoom finesse worm, and then there's that Crock Gator worm. I'll start out with this full length, but I will, if I think the fish are, getting real finicky, they might pick it up and drop. And that's something that'll happen. You know, if you got the wrong profile worm, you're gonna get these little bites, but they won't quite take it. So I'll pinch a little bit of this off and really kind of finesse it out. But you know, when we think of shaky heads, one of the very first worms to come along was the actual Zoom trick worm. So just to give you a little bit of perspective, this is a Zoom trick worm right here, and then this is that Crock Gator worm. So it's similar in size, but if you go to the Zoom finesse worm, quite a bit of difference. I mean, I think this trick worm's like a 7-inch worm, and this is like a 5-inch worm. So it's much more finesse than this. I'm not saying you can't catch them in cold water on this worm, but this is something that I typically throw when the water gets up into the 50s. That's just my perspective. Like I said, let me know what you think about that. And if things are really, really tough, Crock Gator makes another bait called the Shorty. And this is Crock Gator Bait Company. If you haven't heard of them, check them out. They got a lot of really good plastics. But the Shorty, I mean, this is a Ned rig bait. It's made for a Ned rig. So perspective, once again, finesse worm, the Shorty. But it will still pair up pretty good with a shaky head. So when things are stupid tough, you can really, really drop down to this little sucker right here.
Woo, yeah. Man, we found us a little nursery. Yes, sir. Hey man, we having fun. We are having fun, man. We're catching some fish. You know what? We ain't catching no bigs, but we went a long time without really getting any bites, and just figured out this little pattern here. You know, giant fish, I know. But just throwing this little shaky head worm around wood. Got out of the wind, and man, I've had like 7 or 8, 9 bites right down this little 50-yard stretch of bank. Like I said, they ain't big, but sometimes it just feels good to get your line tight. It's a really good rod too, guys. This is the Virtus Jewel all-purpose spin. It's 7'2", really sensitive, and throwing this on, this is actually a little Jewel shaky head too. This is a 5-inch Zoom finesse worm. Just got a little chartreuse on there, 15-pound braid, and we got 10-pound floral leader, just a little Shimano Sahara reel, 2,500, I think. Is it 2,500 or 3,000? It is 2,500, yeah. But man, it's fun. I like finesse fishing. I really like finesse fishing. You never know when you're going to poke a big one either.
Let's talk a little bit about the jig heads. So I fished a lot of different jig heads throughout the year. Probably the one that I settled on up until a couple years ago was this one made by Big Bite Baits. This is readily available. It's got a pretty good hook in it. It's got a good ball head design to it. I like the line tie angle. Got a good keeper. And this was a really good hook for many years. In fact, I still keep a bunch of them in my tackle box. But recently, I started fishing this one right here. This is made by Jewel Bait Company. This is the Jewel Pro Shaky. And it's just a little bit better shaky head than the Big Bite Bait, in my opinion. They're both good, but this one is just a little bit better. It's got a little bit different head design. It's kind of got some flat spots on there. It seems to come through the rocks a little bit better. And it's got a unique keeper on it. I'll show you. I've got the Magnum shaky head. This is basically the same shaky head, but it's a beefed up version of it, and it should be easier to see this keeper. It's got a really unique keeper, and I don't really understand how it works, but all I know is that it does work really well. It keeps that worm pinned up on, right where it needs to be. And one thing I will tell you about a shaky head is I prefer, I don't like the screw lock. This is just my opinion. I feel like you're gonna lose more fish with the screw lock. The only time I really use a screw lock is if I'm really gonna be skipping around docks and I'm having problems with my worm sliding down. Of course, you can put super glue on that, but the screw lock will help keep that worm up on there. But the reason why I think that you're gonna catch more fish on just a ball head versus a screw lock is the gap, the distance between that keeper right there and your hook point. So that screw lock keeper lessens the gap between your hook point and your screw lock. So I'll hold these two up there. I'll attempt to hold these up there. But you can see, so essentially your gap on this one is from the end of the ball head all the way to the hook point, where your gap on this one is from the screw lock to there. Now, if you're not having problems catching fish on these, man, you got to do what you have confidence in, and if it's not broke, don't try to fix it, right? But I do feel like you're going to lose a few fish on this because this kind of acts like a weed guard also. It's hard to explain it, but when the fish grabs it, this is kind of like a little weed guard. It's a little bit harder for them to get all the way down like this. So I've just caught more fish using this. So just for whatever it's worth, take that and put it in your pocket. If you are missing a lot of fish on a screw lock, go to a ball head and you're gonna be getting a lot more fish into the boat. Let's talk about weights. I typically am using a 1/8 to a 3/16. Sometimes I will go up to a 1/4 if I'm fishing a little bit deeper and it's a little bit windy, but I tend to fish the 3/16 most often. There are times when they want an 1/8 ounce. And the reason I think they want the 1/8 ounce sometimes is because it actually helps create kind of a glide. So if you think about this weight, the weight is trying to stay down on the bottom of the lake. The lighter the weight, the more it glides. So if you've got an 1/8 ounce weight on there, as you pull up, you just pull up a little bit, it's gonna encourage, let me grab this worm with the jig head. It's gonna encourage this worm to kind of glide. So the lighter the weight, the more it kind of glides. And sometimes, those fish are sitting right on the bottom. If you can kind of glide it around their face, it's a slow, subtle fall. I have noticed that there are times when they will pick that up. But for all around use, 3/16 has been a good weight for me. One thing I always do is I take this chartreuse spike it marker and I just hit the tip of the tail a little bit. It's not much. You don't have to hit it a whole lot. I mean, basically like 1/8 of an inch, maybe 1/4 of an inch is plenty. Just something to create a little bit of contrast. And we talked about scent earlier. That spike it adds a little bit of scent, which I really feel can be critical in the wintertime when the fish are in a neutral or a negative mindset.
bite. Got him. I got off. That fish bit twice.
As far as equipment, setup and stuff with shaky head, you know, I started out fishing shaky head with a spinning rod, spinning setup. I had it was a Bass Pro Shops Johnny Morris, the top of the line spinning rod. Years ago, I got that. It was a 7-foot medium. It was a great rod, caught a lot of fish on it. Then I bought a Daiwa Tatula that I got for $50, and it was a good rod. It was a medium as well. But recently, I've gotten this Virtus Jewel. It's an all-purpose spin. It's a 7'2" medium heavy, and I've absolutely fell in love with this rod. So a spinning rod between 7 foot and 7'4", medium to maybe medium heavy is perfect for shaky head technique. I do like the braid to fluoro. So 10-pound braid, maybe 15-pound braid, and I'm gonna run a 7 to maybe 15-foot leader of 8-pound fluorocarbon, maybe 10-pound fluorocarbon if you're around some rough rocks. So 8 to 10-pound fluorocarbon, and this is just a 2500 series Sahara. So a 25 to 3000 will get you by just fine. And I tell you what, I just got back into fishing spinning rod with shaky head. The last couple years, I've actually been fishing it on a bait caster, and that works just fine. So you need a bait casting rod that's got some flex. It's a little bit softer action. I had a medium heavy 7 foot, and it was perfect. It wasn't a real heavy medium. It was more towards the medium end of the medium heavy spectrum. So a little bit softer rod, but it still had some backbone. And you know, I kind of going back and forth between the spinning rod and the bait caster. Either one will work fine. And the thing that you kind of give up with the bait caster is you don't get that vertical fall with a bait caster. Like a spinning rod, you cast out, you keep your bell open, you kind of give it a little bit slack, and it's gonna fall. It's gonna fall kind of vertical. Sometimes that makes a difference. Sometimes it doesn't. The thing I really like about a spinning rod though is it makes it, to me, it means it's like more finessey. It just goes better with the whole package. Now you can still cast an 1/8 ounce jig head with the worm on a bait caster, but it can be a little bit easier on a spinning rig, especially if you got a little bit of wind. When you get up to the 3/16 and the quarter, either one works. You know, you can throw it on the bait caster or the spinning rod. I hope this helps you make some decisions. Don't overlook that finesse shaky head in the wintertime. You don't really hear many people talk about it. It's just kind of forgotten. A lot of people think that plastics are made for warm water, but trust me, that shaky head can be deadly. And these are just a few of the worms that I use. There's a lot of worms out there. Share them in the comment section. What are some of your go-to worms for the finesse shaky head technique? Because I love to learn. I get in a habit of when I find something that works, I don't deviate too much from it. And it's really simple. I found these worms that I showed you, they've produced for me in the past, so I don't see a whole lot of reason to branch off, but I'm really interested in some of the other options that are out there. The jig heads that I suggested have been great for me. So this is a whole setup that you can get out there, and when it's tough, you can put that in your hand and you're going to catch some fish in those cold water situations.
There you go. We finally got a good one. I knew he was gonna catch a good one. Get him in first. Knew it. I knew it. Come on, baby, get in the boat. He thumped it too. That fish is up at nothing. They're so shallow. I think I've been fishing too deep. Yeah, that's a good fish. Come on. There we go. No giant, but it's a nice fish compared to what we've been catching. There you go, folks. A little shaky head. Definitely saved the day. I mean, we caught fish on a lot of different things. Just didn't catch a lot of fish on a lot of different things. But as soon as I picked up this little shaky head, some magic started happening. That was fun, man. That is a lot of fun. That was just a thump. This water's really clear. This is a watermelon candy too, and it's been one of my favorite worms over the years. But nice chunky little fish, healthy, man. They're so beautiful right now. This colder water brings out their colors. And give me a thumbs up if you appreciate the content. Please subscribe. Till next time. I'm gonna keep fishing, but I just wanted to do a little outro fish because you never know, I might not catch another one. I'm gonna go throw a chatterbait around here in a little bit. We only got about an hour left, but if you see some fish catches and it's almost dark, that's what happened. Till next time.